Thank you, Deputy Speaker. A government's most important obligation is to keep its citizens safe. This MPI today concerns both the safety of Australians and also the disposable income and the wealth of Australians. So I have two questions, Deputy Speaker. Do Australians feel safer now than they did in May 2022? Do Australians feel poorer or better off than they did in May 2022? Deputy Speaker, the number one duty of the government and the Prime Minister of the day is to keep Australians safe, and also for Australians to feel that they are safe. And, Deputy Speaker, that involves ensuring that proper processes are in place that mean that the government is properly ensuring that everybody that wants to come to our country, particularly those who are coming from war-torn areas, are subject to processes to ensure they have not been radicalised, for example, to ensure that they are going to continue the great tradition we have in this country of multiculturalism. But what we have seen this week in question time, in very sensible questions that have been put to the Prime Minister and to the Immigration Minister, is a failure to be able to ensure that those processes are in place, processes that have been in place under successive governments for many decades. And today in question time, Deputy Speaker, I asked the Prime Minister a question. I asked him about the government's policy. Is it now the Australian government's policy that sympathy for Hamas, a listed terrorist organisation, is not grounds for visa refusal or cancellation? The Prime Minister was unable to answer that question and instead treated it with contempt and went off on some tangent about polling and some other ridiculous nonsense, again demonstrating that he could not convince anybody in this chamber that he was in a position to keep Australians safe. And then, Deputy Speaker, let us turn to inflation. After more than 2 years, this government has completely failed Australians on the economy. The government, as well as having an obligation to keep Australians safe, governments have an obligation to facilitate an economy where every Australian that wants to can get ahead, where Australians can earn and keep more of what they earn. But what we have seen over 2 years is $315 billion worth of spending. That's $30,000 for every single Australian household. That spending has directly caused the inflation rate to be where it is, the highest out of any of the G10 countries. Our inflation rate's higher, and that has kept interest rates at a higher level for longer. And it's not just me saying it, Deputy Speaker. It is the Reserve Bank Governor, Michelle Bullock, last week. While ever inflation remains high, interest rates remain high. And what that means for people in my electorate, for people in southern and south-western Sydney, they know that things are a lot harder. They know that they have had nearly an 8% drop in their disposable income. They know whether they're in Engadine, Ingleburn, Heathcote, Holsworthy, Glenfield, Menai, Moorebank, Bangor, Bundeena. They know that their mortgages and their rents have gone up by 15%. Those on mortgages, those who hold mortgages, 22,000 of them in my electorate, have now paid more than $35,000 in interest payments over 2 years that they did not pay under the former government. And that is directly the result of this government's overspending. And this is causing now, Deputy Speaker, for Australians to have to make real choices about their spending. Do they enrol their children in summer sports this year? What after-school activities can they still afford to do? Can we go to the movies on the weekend? Can we go out to dinner? What are we going to do about Christmas this year. Deputy Speaker, this is a government and a Prime Minister that has failed Australians with security, and it's failed Australians with the economy.